We are less than 1 week away from March, so today will be my last ranking video in the month of February, and yet again, I have a new number 1 team in the country at the top of my rankings. But before we get into those rankings, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And now, let's jump into it. And starting off my rankings with my new number 1 team in the country, it's the Duke Blue Devils, who are now 25-2 and are looking like the most complete team in the nation. This past week, they followed up a dominant performance against Syracuse with a statement win over Michigan on a national stage and proved why they were the number 1 team in all of college basketball right now. Cameron Boozer keeps anchoring both ends of the floor for the Blue Devils, and this defense has been elite in big moments time and time again this season. And with 2 razor-thin losses all year so far, Duke just feels built for April and capable of finishing the job and winning a national title. Sliding back to number 2 in my rankings is the Michigan Wolverines, and their historic season still rolls on despite that narrow loss to Duke this past week. But before that, they handled Purdue on a road in a very impressive game and continue to control the Big Ten at 15-1 now. And this team is balanced, physical, and confident on both ends, and that loss to Duke really doesn't scare me away from them. The 11-game winning streak may be over now, but nothing but their long-term outlook changes for me, and Michigan still looks like a group fully capable of making a deep March run and making it to the Final Four or even lifting up that national championship trophy. Arizona is up to number 3 in this week's rankings, and after back-to-back losses a few weeks ago, Arizona responded exactly how a contender should. They beat BYU and followed it with a huge road win at Houston and showed toughness and depth in that one, even without Koa Pete in the game. And Anthony Del Orso's emergence off the bench gives this team another weapon that they can go to on a nightly basis. And even without perfect shooting nights, especially from beyond the arc, the Wildcats have just found ways to win time and time again. And that resilience keeps them firmly in the national title conversation for me moving forward. At number 4, I have the Iowa State Cyclones, and they continue stacking high-level wins, including Houston recently, even if they did stumble at BYU to close this past week. But this team's resume is as strong as just about anyone's right now, and they've proven they can beat elite competition. And with a balanced attack and big game experience in Joshua Jefferson, Taman Lipsey, and Milan Momcilovic, the Cyclones remain dangerous in any matchup that they have. And if they can clean up some of those late-game stretches, Iowa State absolutely has the profile of a Final Four team. Next at number 5 is the Houston Cougars, and the Cougars have definitely hit a bump recently with back-to-back losses to Iowa State and Arizona, but perspective matters here as both of these teams were top 6 in the entire country, and they were competitive battles against them. The Cougars still defend at a high level and boast one of the nation's best freshman duos in Kingston Flemings and Kristanak Jr., who have both been looking great recently. And to me, these back-to-back losses feel like time for more recalibration rather than just a collapse by the Houston, and they remain a Big 12 powerhouse and a team that nobody will want to face in March. And jumping all the way up to number 6 in my rankings, I have the Florida Gators, and the Gators are just heating up at the perfect time as we enter March. Winners of 7 straight now, including key SEC matchups, the Gators continue asserting themselves atop that league, but also looks like one of the best teams in the nation in this new calendar year. Their interior presence in Alex Condon and Ruben Chinyelu and Thomas Houck has been awesome, and the balanced scoring coming from the backcourt as well with Xavier Lee, Boogie Flan, and Urban Clavsar have been overwhelming as of late. They handled business again this week and look increasingly confident with each and every game. And if this momentum carries into the NCAA tournament, Florida has the experience and depth to seriously threaten for another deep run in March. Next at the number 7 spot is where I have the UConn Huskies, and they had a surprising home loss this past week to Creighton, but bounced back with a strong road win against a very good Villanova team. Now, the Huskies are 15-2 in the Big East, but they're still firmly in control of their conference destiny. However, those defensive lapses that we've seen have been popping up more and more recently, yet this overall body of work remains impressive by the Huskies, and they have proven that they have championship DNA with back-to-back national titles a few years ago. And if they can just tighten up on the defensive end, I know they have the offense that will make them capable of another postseason surge. Coming in as my number 8 ranked team is the Purdue Boilermakers, and Purdue split this past week as they fell to Michigan at home before crushing Indiana in their response, and that bounce back against the Hoosiers really matters to me. The offense continues to hum at an elite level behind Braden Smith's impressive point guard play, and when shots are falling, they're nearly impossible to stop. But much like the Huskies, defensive inconsistencies remain the question and will limit their ceiling. But this group has responded well to adversity all season long, and if they can defend just well enough, Purdue can make some serious noise in the tournament. The Nebraska Cornhuskers come in at my number 9 spot, and Nebraska's magical season has definitely hit a rough patch recently, especially with their most recent game at Iowa, but they answered with a convincing win over Penn State, and even with all of their recent losses, a 20-game winning streak to start the season really speaks volumes to this team. And this program hasn't historically thrived in March, but this team feels different as they're confident and battle-tested going into the tournament and should win the program's first ever March Madness game this season. And if they can regain their offensive rhythm, Nebraska could turn this historic year into something even bigger. And rounding out my top 10 at number 10, I have the Virginia Cavaliers, and Virginia just keeps stacking wins and are building a belief under Ryan Odom in his first season with the program. And this past week, they had another dominant road showing at Georgia Tech, which was followed by a gritty comeback win against Miami, which highlights this team's versatility that they've shown. And they're surging in the ACC conference right now and are playing connected basketball on both ends of the floor. And if they can continue this upward trajectory, Virginia could quietly become one of the toughest outs in the bracket. Next at number 11, I have Michigan State, and the Spartans steadied the ship this past week with wins over UCLA and Ohio State after what was a shaky stretch where we saw this team lose 3 out of their last 4. And this team really plays with a toughness and structure under Tom Izzo, and when they have the ability to build leads early, they're hard to chase down with that defense that they bring each and every night. And March is where Tom Izzo teams traditionally thrive, and this group feels capable of just that and flipping the switch at the right time here. And dropping to number 12 is the Illinois Fighting Illini, and Illinois continues to showcase one of the most explosive offenses in the country. And this past week, they handled USC in a 36-point blowout before suffering a heartbreaking overtime loss to UCLA on what was a last-second shot. And the close defeats have exposed some weaknesses to me from this Illini team, specifically on the defensive end. But with everyone healthy and multiple scoring options on this roster, and specifically Keaton Wagler, Kylan Boswell, and more, Illinois definitely has the firepower to win shootouts, and they have the confidence to hang with anyone late in games, but it will be just how far can that defense take them. Gonzaga comes in at my number 13 spot, and they just keep winning even if it's not always in the dominant fashion that we would expect. This past week, they won on the road at San Francisco and picked up a gritty win over the Pacific to keep them atop the WCC standings. And the Bulldogs have shown both high ceilings and unexpected dips throughout this season, and that inconsistency really raises some questions for me, but their overall resume and experience can't be ignored. And if they can find some sustained rhythm, especially like they had in the non-conference, Gonzaga's postseason upside remains very real, but I will say I think it hinges on whether or not Braden Huff is able to return for the NCAA tournament. Climbing up to number 14 this week is Rick Pitino and the St. John's Red Storm, and St. John's right now is one of the hottest teams in the country, and they're now riding a 13-game winning streak after strong wins over Marquette and Creighton this past week. They've tightened up on the defensive end and found ways to survive inconsistent outside shooting, and the emergence of Dylan Darling in the backcourt has been huge for this team because you already know what you're getting from Zuby Ejiofor and Bryce Hopkins on a nightly basis. And Rick Pitino's squad is starting to peak at the right time, and they're controlling the Big East race over UConn, and momentum like this can carry deep into March if they're able to maintain it. Coming in at number 15 is the Kansas Jayhawks, and Kansas looked unstoppable during a recent stretch, which included massive wins over BYU, Texas Tech, and Arizona, but a puzzling home loss to Cincinnati this past week has really cooled that momentum. They also had a game against Oklahoma State, which they handled the Cowboys earlier in the week and showed flashes of dominance once again. And the ceiling of this team is clearly high, but consistency remains a question. But maybe even more important is the question of what is going on with freshman star Darren Peterson and whether or not he's going to be available for each and every game. Alabama comes in at number 16, and the Crimson Tide is back in full stride, it seems, with 6 straight wins, including an instant classic double overtime victory over Arkansas this past week. And as we all know, this offense is explosive and relentless and capable of overwhelming opponents in high-scoring games, and their road win later in the week at LSU further solidified this. And if the defense holds steady enough, Alabama's scoring punch and the weapons that they have on the offensive end makes them one of the most dangerous teams in the entire country in the NCAA tournament to me. Next at number 17 is Arkansas, who battled in that double overtime thriller at Alabama before rebounding with a strong win over a bubble team in Missouri this past week. And even in defeat against the Crimson Tide, Arkansas showed resilience with a limited roster and offensive firepower, with freshman star Darius Acuff Jr. going for nearly 50 points in that game. And the Razorbacks have been inconsistent at times this season, but they're still firmly in the SEC race. And if they string together efficient shooting nights, Arkansas has the talent to disrupt higher seeds come tournament time. Vanderbilt comes in at number 18, and their incredible start has cooled slightly after back-to-back close losses this past week against Missouri and Tennessee, but the larger body of work by the Commodores still matters to me for this ranking. This team is 21-6 and has beaten quality SEC opponents and shown it can compete at the highest of levels, and one rough week by Mark Byington's squad doesn't erase months of strong play for me. And if they stabilize defensively and regain their early season form, Vanderbilt remains a team I would not want to see in March. Coming in at number 19 is Texas Tech, who faced adversity this past week, including a tough loss at Arizona State, which was made even worse with the season-ending injury to JT Toppin. But the Red Raiders responded with a dominant win over Kansas State this past weekend, and the resilience shown after that setback speaks volumes to this team, and their depth will definitely now be tested, and others like Christian Anderson must step up even more than they already have this season. And while the injury to JT Toppin definitely alters this team's ceiling, the Red Raiders still have enough fight to remain competitive down the stretch to me. Next at number 20 is BYU, who has battled through injuries of their own with their star guard Richie Saunders now out for the season, and they also just went through a recent 4-game losing streak, but this past week they reminded everyone of their potential with that huge win over Iowa State. And with Saunders now out, this team will lean even more heavily on its stars AJ Dubasa and Robert Wright, but if they can get complementary pieces like Kennard Davis to emerge, BYU still has the talent to threaten some of the top teams in the country. At number 21 for me is Tennessee, who jumps back into the rankings. They continue climbing after some of those early season stumbles. And this past week, they had strong wins over Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, which highlighted their renewed confidence. And they've been playing some disciplined basketball and rising in the SEC standings over the past couple of weeks. And over the last 6 weeks specifically, very few teams have been more consistent than the Volunteers. And with the emergence of Nate Ament, who has become exceptionally more consistent time and time again, this team has an even higher ceiling now, and if this form holds, Tennessee feels like a team that's peaking at the exact right time heading toward March. At number 22 is North Carolina, and that inconsistency away from home showed again this past week with their tough loss at rival NC State, especially while being shorthanded without Caleb Wilson, who is out with injury right now. However, the Tar Heels did bounce back in a big way with a solid road win at Syracuse. And now, this team has proven it can beat elite competition, but the depth and availability remain concerns, and we'll just have to wait and see once Caleb Wilson is back, who I think is projected to come back come the ACC tournament. And if they can get fully healthy, the Tar Heels are absolutely capable of pulling off some major upsets in the tournament. Next at number 23 is Louisville, who split this past week as they dropped a road game before responding convincingly at home. And the Cardinals continue to hover near the top of the ACC and show strong offensive punch when those shots are falling, specifically from Michael Brown Jr. and Ryan Conyoel, who are a dynamic duo in that Louisville Cardinal backcourt. But defensive questions remain for me, but their 5-game surge entering the week showed some real growth on that end of the floor, and if they can once again find consistency on both ends, Louisville could quietly advance deeper than most expect. And moving up one spot in my rankings is Miami, Ohio, and now at 27-0, Miami, Ohio is still the only unbeaten team in college basketball and one of the best stories that we've had all season long. And regardless of the strength of schedule debates, perfection is perfection to me, and they handle business again this week and now sit just a few games away from being an unblemished regular season team. And as long as they keep winning, they belong in the top 25, and the confidence of staying undefeated could be powerful for them come NCAA tournament time. And rounding out the top 25 at number 25, I have St. Louis, who saw its long winning streak snapped but responded immediately with a strong victory over VCU. And that resilience matters, as this is a balanced team capable of scoring from multiple spots and surviving rough stretches in games. And even with the conference loss to Rhode Island, they remained in commanding position in the A10. And if they sustain that depth and composure, St. Louis could be a dangerous mid-major in March and one to keep an eye out for. But as always, I want to go over some of the teams that are just on the outside of my top 25 rankings, but could be included here soon, and they are Villanova, Utah State, Wisconsin, Kentucky, and Iowa. And here's a complete list of how my rankings look heading into the next week of college basketball. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on my top 25 rankings in the comments down below. Was there a team that was way too high or way too low? Or was there a team that I didn't even include that should have been to you? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.